Welcome back to the All About Audiology podcast. I'm your host, Dr.Lilach Saperstein, and this is the All About You mini episode, episode 8. In the last full episode, episode 7, we discussed what happens at an audiology appointment and what you can expect for your hearing test. George from St. Paul, Minnesota commented, "Very informative. I wish I had known this before my appointment." And Raj from Queens, New York wrote to me saying, "When I took my mom for her appointment, I was totally lost. It was a long and harrowing experience for both of us. She has dementia and has good days and bad days. I think your advice about making a morning appointment would have been a good idea for her. I'll keep that in mind for future appointments." And Grace commented, "It totally calmed me down. Your podcast walked me through step by step what will happen. Listening to your podcast not only made me realize that the results of the test are partially affected by my anxiety and the time of day, I now know that I have the power to help myself succeed in making the results more accurate when I get my hearing tested." Thank you so much, George, Raj, and Grace, for listening to the podcast and for sending me your responses. Now, Molly from Florida sent me a question, and she asks, "I have claustrophobia, and I'm really scared to go because I don't want to be in that small, dark room. What do you suggest I do? I'm putting off the appointment because of this fear." That's a great question, Molly. There's a few things I can say here. Number one, some booths are bigger than others, so you can look up online all the locations near you and give them a call, see what's their setup like. Some hospitals have bigger booths relatively than private practices, and also pediatric offices usually have more room in their booths and larger booths so they can accommodate the children and their caregivers. So it's usually a bigger booth. Number two, meditation and grounding are amazing tools that I've personally used to deal with anxiety and high-stress situations. It can be very helpful to focus on your breath, to remind yourself that you're safe, and to have some sort of anchor thought to carry you through the appointment. Of course, I don't mean to minimize at all the debilitating sense of being claustrophobic, but sometimes working on reframing the experience can really help. Being in the room and the quiet and the solitude is actually very soothing for some people. And if you're interested in this, I can share meditations with you or even create a guided recording for you, Molly. I've done that before, and it's a tool that can be very powerful in a lot of different situations. So feel free to email me about that, Molly, if you're interested, or anyone else who might want to follow up on this. Number 3, advocate for yourself. Tell the audiologist how you're feeling, and many times you can be accommodated. The door of the booth can be left open. It will affect the low-frequency results, but in some cases that's not so crucial, especially if the office is not so busy, or, depending on the layout of where the booth is and what kind of noise there is around. And you can for sure ask for the lights to be turned on if they're dim. This is an excellent opportunity for you to become more assertive and advocate for yourself, which is not easy, but it's really important. Now, I also told all of you about the conversation I had on the Raise a Legend podcast with the host Ray Fitzgerald. If you haven't heard that episode, head over to the show notes for this episode for a link, or visit the podcast page, Raise a Legend, raisealegend.com. It's episode 19. And here's a few responses that came in from that episode about our conversation. We talked about the different stages of auditory and language development throughout childhood and how to keep your kids' ears clean and healthy. So Laura said, "You are so full of knowledge. It flows out of you. I love how relatable you are. It's clear that you really see your patients as whole people with families and lives outside of just their hearing problem." Wow, thanks, Laura. That's really kind of you to say, and you've picked up on my philosophy that you have to see the whole child in their context, taking into account their skills, their abilities, their potential. The family structure and what kind of support they have is a huge part of each person's journey through life. There's the medical picture, the educational picture, all the different spheres of this child's world, and hearing is one piece of that whole puzzle. A student studying to become a speech therapist DM'd me on Instagram about the Raise a Legend podcast episode, and they said, "It was interesting to see the interaction between Ray and you. I love the difference of structure. Your podcast is very educational and gives the building blocks and the micro details, information, stories, and imagery to understand the fundamentals. But hearing the interview made me see it more of a global, overall, big picture thing. It allowed for a different view of how it all comes together. It was also entertaining to see you come alive in conversation. I enjoy following you along this journey. I especially like that you mentioned speech-language pathologist because that's what I'm studying to be. Hearing that my dream job is actually life-changing for people was exciting. Thanks, and I'm excited for you." Let me know any of your comments or ideas, responses to our episodes. Contact me at allaboutaudiology.com through the contact page or leave a comment on any episode post. Transcripts from every episode are available at allaboutaudiology.com, so if you prefer to read them, they are accessible over there. You can always send me a direct message on Instagram at allaboutaudiologypodcast. I'm always excited to hear from you, and who knows, you might be featured on the next All About You episode. Join us for the next episode, which is all about your child's audiology appointment and what you can expect are the different parts of a hearing test when it involves children. So tune in next time. This has been All About You, Episode 8. I'm Dr. Lilach Saperstein, and this is the All About Audiology podcast.